Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Andrew Moran, Sarah Cowgill, Joe Schaefer, and David Patterson. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, Wagging the Dog, War. What is it good for? What's happening in Ukraine and what role will the U.S. play? A doozy of a display over Doocy. Is it much ado about nothing, or is something more sinister afoot with Biden's outbursts? We'll talk about the bulls and the bears of financial markets in our exclusive Member Zone subscriber segment, The Great Financial Market Implosion. And our Conservative Five shifts gears to the consequences of unbridled hate as we talk about the lost members of Never Trump Land. And finally, we'll play around in our Just for Fun segment, a fan favorite, where you never know what you'll learn. All this and more coming up on this edition of the Conservative Five. For almost a year now, Ukraine has had Russian combat troops planted menacingly on its eastern border. Liberty Nation has reported on U.S. and NATO reaction to the pressures posed by the Kremlin forces. Threats and counter-threats are being used as leverage to buy time for an outcome that no one can readily predict. Is it simply a matter of time until all hell breaks loose? Or is Russia just trying to bully Ukraine into peaceful submission? Buckle up, folks. It may be a bumpy ride for Eastern Europe, and our military affairs correspondent Dave Patterson is here to dot the I's and cross the T's. Dave, I just heard a Pentagon live press briefing, and they said France has now put, their troops in motion. So I guess everything's all good and well, and now that the French are there, we're good to go.
Yikes, that is comforting. Actually, this is kind of confusing for the people looking in from the outside. On the one hand, you have President Putin, who is saying that he isn't getting enough respect and that NATO, US, and European allies are simply ignoring his security needs. And then he also opened up the possibility that Russia would not be invading Ukraine. On the other hand, we have President Biden, who puts 8,500 troops on heightened alert, sending 3,000 troops to Eastern Europe, 2,000 will go to Poland and Germany, and 1,000 will move from Germany to Romania. So it seems as though we're talking past each other and are, quite frankly, it's almost perverse. Putin is getting exactly what he wants. Biden is getting what he wants. Putin, because he is now a major actor on the world stage, and Biden, because the focus is on the Ukraine sovereign border and not on the United States sovereign border, where illegals are just crossing in droves.
Sarah, do you think that, things are starting to ratchet up and people are starting to talk about this out in the heartland and they're getting concerned?
I don't think people are concerned here. I hang out in a local pub that is owned, military owned, former military owned, and they can see this coming a mile away. I think their biggest worry is, now that we have seen what happened in Ukraine, their biggest issue is, are we getting the people out of Afghanistan? Are we getting Americans out of Ukraine before all hell breaks loose over there? And that's their biggest concern around here.
Joe, do we have a situation where, weakness begets trouble on the world stage? I mean, starting back with Afghanistan?
Well, if you're asking me, I don't care. This is, we have problems in America. We have our own border, and the vast majority of Americans really do not want to go to war with Ukraine, not even close. They're not interested. You can talk about it any way you want. We have our house is burning down right here, and I'm just not too worried about it. But I would like, if it's okay, I'd like to ask Dave a question, just a question. What does he think of the analogy that I've seen many people give of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 with Soviet missiles right on our doorstep, annoying us. Does Vladimir Putin have a right to be upset with NATO going right up to his doorstep like this? Or is that not a good analogy? What do you think about that, Dave?
Well, I think from the standpoint of, Russia v. The United States, it's probably a reasonable comparison. On the other hand, much to our dismay, the Biden administration, the Biden national security team is nowhere near the competence of the JFK team. And it just seems as though from, if you compare and contrast, you have Russia and the United States. If you want to contrast it, the consequences are drastically different. On the one hand, with the Cuban Missile Crisis, you had nuclear missiles that could easily range the eastern coast. But with Ukraine, the consequences more of will Russia move in into the eastern part of the Donbas region of Ukraine, and then of course the Western nations have argued that they will impose significant economic sanctions. So the consequences are drastically different.
So, Andrew, from your perch up in Canada, will Biden be tough or watch it unfold? Or is this going to be, like Dave said, kind of a Cuban missile thing happening again?
Well, Ukraine, Canada has a lot of has a heavy Ukraine population, and actually, my neighborhood, one of my neighbors, he's from Ukraine, and he was telling me how Zelensky's a fool. But in this situation, I think Biden is the fool. Zelensky's taking advantage of everybody. He's telling people we need $5 billion to secure our economy. We need all these military weapons. We need all these financial loans. And what's happened? And then he says at the same time, tone down the rhetoric. I know better than a lot of people what's going on the ground. So I think Biden is being foolish here, but Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, he's doing a fantastic job, is just taking all the money from the rest of the world to fight against Russia. So I think out of everybody, Zelensky's one who's looking best in this situation.
David, got just a few seconds left. Quick prediction. What happens next?
I think that Putin goes and enjoys the Winter Olympics in China.
Well, there's a lot riding on a peaceful solution to the crisis unfolding in Ukraine. Will Joe Biden be a major player in drawing this mess to a conclusion? Or will we see him recede into the shadows or attempt to bully Putin into backing down? We'll let you know the details. Thanks, panel, and thank you for tuning in. Fox News White House correspondent Peter Doocy received an unexpected tongue lashing from President Biden during a recent presser. The reporter seemed to ask a legitimate question on inflation and whether it would negatively impact the midterms. The president responded with, quote, "That's a great asset, more inflation. What a stupid son of a bleep," end quote. The exchange brought even more attention to Biden's penchant for sudden temper tantrums. But it also hints at complete disrespect for the Fourth Estate and its disorderly administration, unable to communicate effectively. Everyone on the staff at Liberty Nation has covered these violent outbursts made by the president against voters and Congress and those who disagree with his policies. We've covered his mental health, his long history of lying, his inability to answer even the simplest questions. Are we seeing a public unraveling? Sure seems that way. What do you say, Sarah?
I say we've been watching him unravel since he left as vice president. He really was coming kind of into his own when he was debating Trump during the election, and he lost his temper. He kept losing his temper, and after the debate, we watched him rip to shreds, the supposed electorate, the voters. He took on somebody in Iowa. He called somebody fat. He has called people, dog-faced lion pony soldiers, or I'm not sure I got that right, but I was close. And we have watched him unravel when he is out in front of people without having somebody, slip him notes, or in his fake White House Oval Office set, where it's a controlled environment. He does not do well. He does not have a grasp on what he is saying, the questions he is answering, and then then Psaki has to come in and kind of sweep up the mess. I don't see how anybody hasn't noticed this, including the most hardcore Biden voters. They've had to have noticed this. They can't edit out everything. So I just say we're just watching him slowly steer into the skid of senility in front of our eyes.
Joe, you can't help but miss that the advocacy media, who was very Biden friendly, is slowly turning on him. What do you make of that?
I don't know what to make of that, because they're all in on this administration. And
but they're abandoning ship. I mean, look at the
the administration, not the president himself. And I think that they want another figurehead to step in there. But again, that was the plan all along. I think I really truly believe they never saw Biden being in there for 4 years. They'd love to get Kamala Harris in there right now, but she has been so hopelessly at sea herself that they can't do that. I think the thing that's most interesting in this, we know what Joe Biden is. Like Sarah said, he's been this way for years now. And we talked about this before, during the general election, how they are removing a major presidential candidate who's now president. They're removing him from the American people. Doesn't do press conferences, doesn't talk to the media, doesn't talk to the people. So, okay, this is what Joe Biden is, this is what it's going to be. But is he setting a dangerous precedence for future presidents that we talk about this controlled environment? Are we going to have our president so removed from all, fair media questioning, any kind of a real and genuine interaction with the American people? It's the precedent that Joe Biden is setting that scares me more than just this pathetic spectacle that he's become.
I'm gonna say it. I think this has been in play since the get-go. They thought the media is driving the mule train. They saw, we got to beat Trump somehow. None of the other candidates were going to beat Trump. Somehow they put in this Biden and pushed it and drove the message in the media and away from, Trump for 3 years. I think they have finally decided, let's enact our safe word and pull this guy out of here. And so they're starting to little bit chip away. And that's telling the Democratic Party, you need to get somebody in here. You need to fix this because he ain't lasting. And so they're chipping away at him so that the Democratic Party will take over and find somebody new.
Dave, you and I have a few years on the rest of the panel, and I think we can safely say, and this is what medical experts say, dementia is not a normal thing of aging. It's not a normal side effect of aging. He's really got something going on, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, the simple solution to this whole thing is that when Biden came out of his basement during COVID, he left his brain there. And yeah. I think that this is just, I think that people age differently. They retain their capacity differently. And the way I look at it, what's indicative of President Biden's approach to the people is that he continues to go back, revert back to his time in the Senate, and he likes to talk about his time there as though it were current. And that's just not a good plan.
Andrew, I'll give you the last laugh here, as they say.
Well, I'll say this. I have twins, so every year I get older. I'm actually 5 years older. But, I'm going to do a devil's advocate here. On the one hand, conservatives are complaining about President Biden lashing out. But this is exactly what the right loved when Trump did it. How many times did he call the press SOBs? There's that famous clip now of him calling that guy on Meet the Press an SOB. Biden's predecessor did it all the time. But then on the other hand, he can play devil's advocate too, because when Biden ran for office and when he became president, he demanded unity. He said we have to, be polite to each other. He said he would fire anyone on the spot of his administration if they didn't practice dignity and respect. So, there's such a double side for both sides of the political aisle. There's a great Twitter account. It's called Define L's, and it listed all these blue check marks who were getting so angry that President Trump, he was insulting the press and calling them all these names. And then at the end, the other side said, oh, it's good for President Biden to go after Fox News. It's good that you go after the fourth estate. So both sides are just making themselves look foolish. Biden's human, Trump is human. That's their style. You're making a mountain out of a molehill.
I disagree. I think something is seriously wrong with the man. He pops off at the oddest times. I think with Donald Trump, what you saw is what you got. I believe that Biden hides behind this Mr. Nice Guy, Joe Lunchbucket. We're the Bidens. We're such a good family. Joe, I'll give you the last word.
I get the last word. The last word is that they can do this for another 2 years. They can control him. They can get away with it. The media they may not like it, but the media will help them more than they will hurt them. And I think that they can get away with hiding this guy like this for another 2 years, unfortunately, for the American people.
Yeah, and being in control during a crisis is a major part of being a leader of the free world. If he unleashes his temper at the smallest of incidents, what is Biden going to do when he's faced with disasters or tragedies or like what's going on in Ukraine? Are his mental health and cognitive faculties sufficient for his high position? I don't know. Thanks, panel. Liberty Nation senior political analyst Tim Donner penned a piece this week focusing on the demise of the Never Trump movement. In the article, Tim explains how hatred toward Donald Trump was the death knell of many a career and reputation. But to what end? As Donner opined, quote, the genuine derangement of these people is perhaps best demonstrated by their utter disregard for the effect their defection will have on their own careers. Did they think the GOP would welcome them back once Trump's presidency was over? End quote. The answer is a resounding hell no. And what have we heard from Bill Kristol and George Conway? Crickets. But will the neocons be back and bigger than ever? Let's discuss. Joe, you're hot on deck.
Well, I read the article. It's a very interesting piece. The one thing I don't know if the word disagree is right, but something that I need to point out is, and this is the problem, there really is no punishment for what these people do.
You want to send them to debtor's prison or something?
Well, you'd like to think their career is over, but what does that mean? The swamp, the uniparty, whatever you want to call it. They've got golden parachutes galore. There's K Street. There's a comfortable DC think tank.
Well, wait a minute. The Weekly Standard went kaput, right?
Look at Jeff Flake. Jeff Flake was a senator, and I'd like to think that I hurt him to lose his seat. But he goes to CBS News, and he's an analyst there, and he bombed. He was boring. So Joe Biden appoints him an ambassadorship. Where is he? In Turkey now. They take care of themselves, and they, like Adam Kinzinger knows what he's doing. He knew he was lighting his congressional career on fire, but he also knows that he's going to be rewarded for it. He's going to end up just fine. And this is the problem. This is the problem that if Americans want to take back their government, there is really, and I hate to say it, but there is no harsh punishment for going against your own constituents, for telling them one thing and then doing something else. Well, you'll get rewarded by the lobbyists the lobbyists that you're working for anyway. They'll take care of you on the other side. And so when we talk about the swamp, when we talk about cleaning up DC, it's going to take a lot of work and a long time. And to just say they're unpopular now, their career is over, well, it's all part of the game. And no, they're not going away. This is going to be a long, decades-long fight to clean up the swamp. It's not just never Trumpers and that's it. It's a uniparty. They're established and they take care of their own.
Sarah, do you buy that? Do you think all these guys?
I don't, I know. I mean, yeah, sure, they're going to land on their feet financially, but anybody who goes into politics and goes to the highest levels of politics doesn't want to be taken out. You didn't factor in ego or legacy or going down in history, Joe. And that's what all these guys want. They don't really care about the money. They've got plenty to live on. It's not about taking care of them financially. It's about them bombing on a spectacular level with the people. And that's what they're concerned about. They're not concerned about the finances. And you totally glossed over that. So that's where I'm going with this. You need to factor in that I want to go down in history, and they're not. They're just not. Nobody even remembers who the heck Jeff Flake is. And I knew him when he was just a freaking local Arizona assembly person. So, where'd he go? Nowhere fast.
I was just going to say, I know, I'm just thinking that the only name that Tim did not mention, and he should have, was Max Boot. I'm on Joe's side. All these people, they make their money and they'll continue making money. They'll leave office and have these cozy positions. Max Boot, he's one of those guys. He's a neocon. He's a never Trumper, and the left opens him with open arms, despite completely complaining about these guys during the Bush years. Max Boot says, "I have white privilege, but then we should go bomb all these countries." So these people are pathetic. But what's even more pathetic is the Republican Party itself. Aside from the likes of Thomas Massie or Rand Paul, there's nobody appealing in that party. The leadership's terrible. They're only depending right now on Trump or DeSantis to lead them to 2024, 2028. And that's it. Everyone else, they backstab you. In fact, they're even worse than Democrats in many ways, because with Democrats, you know what you're getting. You're getting more war. You're getting more government. You're getting more taxes, more deficits. The Republican Party, they tell you all these conservative sweet nothings in your ears. Oh, balanced budgets. We have to cut spending. We can't be the policemen of the world. What happens? They turn into neocons. They turn into leftists, and they're terrible.
Well, Dave, getting back to the original premise of our discussion, I think that, somebody like Rich Lowry proved once and for all, he's the editor of National Review, that he is no William F. Buckley.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, and nor would I say that he would claim to be, but nonetheless, you're exactly right. I think, Lisa, that the problem with the Never Trumpers is that they did not have a position based on substantive issues. The only position they had was they didn't like Donald Trump's style.
Exactly.
And oh, too bad. But when you ask them, well, did you like the lower taxes? Well, yeah, I like that. Did you like the bringing back of $1.3 trillion back into the United States economy? Well, yeah, I liked that. Did you like the fact that he dropped the suit on the Little Sisters of the Poor? Well, yeah, I liked that. Well, what was it that you didn't like?
Oh, we didn't like the mean tweets.
Yeah, mean tweets, right. And so that's the problem with Never Trumpers. They can't point to a Trump policy decision that they don't like. They just didn't like him. And quite frankly, I did. I thought that Donald Trump said what everyone was thinking, and that was his appeal.
Dave, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Well, Trump did what a lot of folks hoped he would. He blew up the Republican Party and steered it away from orchestrating candidates following the party agenda. For 3 decades, conservatives have had to hold their collective noses and pull the lever in the voting booth for whoever had an R next to their name. Trump's candidacy encouraged people to select their own candidate, warts and all. Thanks, panel. We are well into the throes of winter, and to warm things up, we're going to play a game called Would You Rather? And yes, we hope it does get a bit heated. Remember, audience, this is all in fun, which is why we call it Just for Fun. I will call out our panel individually and ask them to choose an answer from a list of possibilities I have in my hot little hand. All questions and responses have been vacuum sealed to avoid any appearance or suggestion of cheating. Let's begin with our funny man, Andrew Moran. 1, 2, 3, or 5. What choose you?
Well, what's fine? I've been doing this for a year and nobody's caught on that I use the same number all the time. So does anybody know what number I use?
3.
3. There you go, Lisa. Sarah got it. So 3.
3. Okay, I did not catch that. All right. Would you rather spend an hour teaching Jen Psaki the basics of economics or an hour with Joe Biden readying him for a presser on inflation?
Ooh. Oh, Jen Psaki, of course, would be nice alone, nice, cuddling, talk about economics in the back, drink some
Cuddling?
coffee, talk about economics.
You've got a problem.
Yeah, you got a serious problem.
A warm and lovely person.
Like cuddling a porcupine.
Well, I think trying to ready President Joe Biden for a pressure on inflation would be pretty near impossible.
Come on, man.
And
Hey, it'd be like, it'd be better to stick forks in your eyes. You get so frustrated by saying, instead of saying inflation, he'll say it's deflation. We have this deflation problem. You'll keep using all the opposite of what you're teaching him.
But
I would intentionally.
all right, I'm sorry. He'll read the directions and say, look down now. Okay, look up.
I would intentionally make Joe Biden talk about economics or inflation and make it sound like Dr. Seuss.
Oh, you can make it rhyme. That's good. All right, that's good. Now, I see a serious face on Dave, so we're going to put you up next. 1, 2, 4, or 5.
Okay, I will take door number 2.
2. Would you rather valet park all the cars at Kennedy Center or take Whoopi Goldberg to the Holocaust Museum? Wow.
Oh, I think that the Holocaust Museum is far too serious for Whoopi Goldberg. So, there are a lot of different exciting cars that come to the Kennedy Center, and you do get a lot of exotic cars. I mean, I would choose the Ferraris, Lamborghinis, the Porsches. So yeah, I think I would rather do the car parking valet thing. I think that would be far more exciting and actually more upbeat.
Well,
I have a question actually. The Kennedy Museum, is it near Chappaquiddick? Because if not, I don't want to be a valet there.
No.
Doesn't anybody else want to take Whoopi to the Holocaust Museum?
Well, wait a minute.
And watch little old Jewish ladies hit her with their purse.
Joe watches The View all the time. I know he's a big fan.
I was thinking of Per Ted dancing in blackface. That's what I think when we have these discussions about Whoopi Goldberg.
Yeah, that was really kind of a bizarre situation. I mean, talk about open mouth, insert foot. Dave?
I think Whoopi Goldberg actually, these folks, they get really excited about their position in life, and their brains suddenly say, well, I can say just about anything and get away with it. And for the most part, they do, and they do. And so I think this is one time where Goldberg was caught short, and she apologized, and okay, fine, good. Let's press on and not do what they do to us, which is, 20 years from now, they go back and say, remember that dumb and stupid thing you said 20 years ago? Well, you need to be canceled. Well, we don't need to do that.
Well, that was just a bizarre situation. I mean, what's her name? Joy Behar?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Joy Behar is Jewish. I don't know why she didn't step in there and, correct her. That just seemed really, maybe Whoopi Goldberg should have stopped at Sister Act.
or Sister Act 2.
Okay, Joe, 1, 4, or 5.
We'll go with 4.
Numero 4. Would you rather ride with Border Control on the Texas-Mexico border for one day or be Kamala Harris's personal assistant for a day?
I mean, the Border Patrol folks would be a great time. Good people. The chaos and anarchy down there would be something. But, it might be more peaceful than 1 hour with Kamala Harris. So I just imagine just what it would be like with her. We were talking about Whoopi Goldberg, thinking she can get away with anything. Kamala Harris, has she ever been called to the carpet in a personal encounter with anyone? I would just imagine being alone with her, just a sense of entitlement she would have. it would just be off the charts. I would just, oh my God, I would rather do anything than spend quality time alone with Kamala Harris.
Joe, I'm offended. Come on. You said, has anyone ever taken down Kamala Harris personally? Tulsi Gabbard. Come on, guys. Tulsi Gabbard annihilated her.
I'm a fan. I love Tulsi Gabbard.
Sarah, I expect posters for the next C5. Go, Tulsi, go. Okay. Number 1 or number 5, Sarah?
I'll take 5.
Number 5, would you rather be stranded on a highway with a massive snowstorm with Matt Getz or Dan Crenshaw? Wait a minute, I'm trying. Okay, Matt Getz I have.
Can I have them both?
Dan Crenshaw.
One's kind of a MacGyver and the other's just a serious ninja warrior man. I'd have to flip a coin.
Sarah's having a Tulsi Gabbard moment. Okay.
I know.
That's interesting. All right. I'm stuck with number 1. Would you rather paint Nancy Pelosi or Chris Cuomo's toenails?
Oh dear.
Who came up with that question? What the heck?
Wow. This is really hard.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, Chris Cuomo gives me the creeps. He seems like, he would pet your hair and all kinds of stuff while you were, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Kind of skeevy.
The fact that you could choose one from the other shows definitely you do not have a foot fetish.
Oh, thank you. That's good to know. All right. Well, now you know the Liberty Nation plan to take the least tragic option for sanity and survival. And we hope we never have to face the dire circumstances for real. Anyway, folks, we hope you played along and remember to share your political survival tips with us in the comments sections on our social media pages. We're on them all. Thanks for joining us, and pop on over to libertynation.com for a little bit of analysis and the very best of political humor. Don't forget to check out our daily memes. Thanks, guys. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, or on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Sign up for our new member zone, just $17.76 for the year. Special thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank DiOrio, and our executive producer, Sarah Cowgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks so much for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.